Hey guys, it's TheFrXion here, or Tiger Tank 1, 2, whatever you call me. I don't really care. Welcome back to World of Tanks. And I wanted to talk about one thing that I think is very relevant right now. And that is the update 1.18. I'm not sure if any of you guys have watched my videos a couple of months back, but in a lot of videos I've talked about future updates, and I have talked about my fear of future updates, that every single time they change something they might make the game worse. And I'm really cautious of optimism for new patches, and I'm usually kind of scared of what they are kind of mixing up and creating. Basically, all the things I have been thinking about have come to haunt me in the end, because I think I was pretty spot on with the fear of new patches. We now have the Italian tank destroyers, and I know they've been announced for more than 3 or 4 months, but I still can't get around the fact that we now have the Italian TDs that almost have no weak spot in their entirety of the line. Very ridiculous tanks with no apparent weak spots on their turrets. Now, I've been playing World of Tanks for 11 years now, and I have in total seen a lot of updates, but I think this is probably by far one of the worst ones. And when it hit the live server, I just came home, came back from work, wanted to play some World of Tanks, wanted to look into the idea of making new content. I was thinking about taking a look at some of the Italian tanks when I ran into the Vipera at tier 8. Now, you guys might know, or you might not know, I'm not buying any more premium tanks in this game, so I wasn't interested in buying this one, but I was interested in knowing how to deal with it. So I opened up Tanks GG, and we have actually looked at this vehicle about a month ago, because the files have been in the game for a while. Tanks GG already had access to it, and basically what they told us was there are no apparent weak spots on the turret. The turret itself is ridiculously well armored. I think it exceeds the level of 275 millimeters of armor at the front. And basically what is also really bad is that the upper plate is over 200 millimeters thick. So with standard rounds at tier 8, you're not going to be able to touch this tank unless you hit this exact little weak spot down here. This is no joke. This is the weak spot of the Vipera at the front. This right here. This is the smallest slope that I've ever seen, but it's not armored, and this is where you can actually deal damage to the Vipera. Now, if you have some brain cells in your brain, you might notice that it's such a small target that it's almost impossible to hit, especially if you're right in front of a Vipera. So you can imagine what happened when I was fighting this tank. It came around the corner, set in front of me, and I was just stunned. Even with gold shells, since I was running around in a tier 7 vehicle, I wasn't able to touch this tank at all. I wasn't able to do anything. Now, this Vipera set in front of me had a reload of 6 seconds in between the shots, but slowly took care of me. And that was the least amount of fun I ever had on this game in a very long time. The defender was never this bad. At least the defender still had some weak spots, or some semblance where you can actually do damage to it. The defender, if turned the wrong way, you expose things that you should not be exposing. But even the turret has some weak spots. But with the Vipera, you basically are looking down at a tank that has no apparent weak spots, that just sits in front of you, can tank shells from tier 9 and tier 10 tanks, and on a ridge line, it's just absolutely annoying. And this is what World of Tanks has boiled down to. This is the core essence of World of Tanks now. They're selling us these overpowered premium tanks, and they're just kind of ruining the matchmaking experience for everyone, even for the Vipera drivers, because when a Vipera driver meets another Vipera driver, it's basically just a hull down shitfest where both are staring at each other, where they can't pen one another. So, why do I make a rant? It's kind of, not that surprising that World of Tanks and Wargaming have created another monster of a patch and that they are selling us this garbage to. I think personally it's one of these times where I really looked into the mirror and I asked myself, what is the future of my World of Tanks experience? Do I still want to be a part of this World of Tanks experience? And for a short moment, for a couple of days, took time off. I didn't play World of Tanks, I didn't touch the game. I was pretty upset. I didn't want to touch anything. I didn't want to see this game. I didn't want to have anything to do with World of Tanks. Because basically what Wargaming have done with this line is they nerfed the Kranwagen and they've added in something even more toxic. In my opinion, at least. They've added in the Minotauro, and this is going to be the main tank that everyone is going to be playing on ranked, because they're just going to be sitting hull down in one position. And it's really, really annoying, and it's just not enjoyable at all. So what leaves that to us players? Where can we still have fun in this game? Like, the spaces where you are still going to be having fun are so limited. So I decided to play some tier 5, tier 4 games, even some tier 6 games, but I was kind of hesitant on the tier 6 games because you can still meet the Vipera because of the +2 matchmaking. Turns out tier 5 and tier 4 is actually the most enjoyable right now, and I think this is a pretty sad statement. I don't have anything against tier 5. I think tier 5, tier 4, tier 6 are probably the tiers where a lot of things change for the new players, where they finally get into some tanks that have a semblance of World War II tanks that we kind of know and love. But the issue is just, I really always enjoyed tier 8, tier 9, tier 7 as well, tier 10 as long as it was balanced, but nowadays I don't enjoy tier 10 as much anymore. And basically tier 8 has been a very iffy kind of tier for a bit now. So that leaves us with tier 5, tier 4, and everything below that, maybe even tier 6. Now if you go into tier 5 and tier 4 and tier 6, well, you're going to be meeting artillery. Low tier artillery is one of the worst things in the game. Have you heard of my Lord and Savior, the LAFH? Let me find that little artillery piece. It's a tier 5 artillery. It's the most toxic thing I know in this game. But I'm still willing to take on the artillery as long as I don't have to face the Vipera, because it's just that annoying in my opinion. So does that mean I'm done with World of Tanks? Am I no longer going to be making videos on this game? No, that is not what I want to do. I think if I give up now, I kind of hand the victory to Wargaming, because I've invested time, I've invested a lot of money into this game, and I want to archive all of these things. I want to archive the premium tanks that I own, I want to archive the standard tanks, and I want to be able to look back and say, I played this game, I've been there during the good and the bad times, and I've seen it through, and there's something that I can leave behind. I've invested a lot of time into this channel, and if I stop now, it feels like I'm throwing away everything just because of an update. But what this update has taught me, in the greatest sense, is that we should not have faith in Wargaming and in their abilities, because Wargaming just doesn't care. I think I always had this underlying hope that things would get better, and Wargaming always have fed a little bit of things into that hope category, where they added new modes, where they added things, where they kind of reworked certain vehicles now with patch 1.18. Finally, some things that we're looking up, like they are taking things into their own hands and they're taking things seriously again. But then they drop something like this on top of our heads, and everything that they have worked for is gone. All the goodwill that they've generated is gone in an instant. I'm not going to be buying the Vipera. I'm not going to be buying anything anymore in World of Tanks. That also includes loot boxes. I'm not going to be taking a part in the Christmas specials there. I don't care anymore about the financial standpoint of Wargaming. If this company decides to go down this route and they really don't give a shit about our experience in the game, well, we shouldn't give a shit about their experience in real life. And that's basically my point. So 269 days of premium left. Maybe I'm never going to be playing World of Tanks after that again. But I still have a whole bunch of personal reserves that are lying around. So don't worry, I'm not going to be running out of credits anytime soon. And I'm not going to be running out of experience because I have like over, as you can see here, like it's like over 2,000, 3,000 personal reserves. So that I just wanted to kind of take a stance on this update. I wanted to kind of deliver my point because I personally, I kind of had enough. And it's a little bit, you know, I would say it's a bit ironic that I'm saying this, right? So I'm putting myself into this position, talking about how bad it is while I have the Skoda T56 in my garage, right? And I have the SPTK TVP100. Both of them extremely overpowered vehicles. And yeah, I do agree. But the difference is that I did not buy the Skoda T56 outright. I got it in the loot box. And the TVP I actually worked for free. So I got it for free during that marathon. But still, that doesn't change the fact that these vehicles are also broken. I think tier 8 right now is a pretty big mess and it's not very enjoyable. And I just think that there is no more plan for the future of World of Tanks. It's just come and go, add as many things as you can, see to add like as much premium tanks as you are able to, so that people actually buy them. And if the ship goes down, well, it doesn't matter, we've made a lot of money in the end. And that's what's frustrating me so much. This game could have had an additional 10 years very easily if they would have just been a little bit more consumer conscious. Just a little bit. If you add the Vipera, add some apparent weak spots. Give us a weak spot on top of the turret. Give us a weak spot down here. Add a machine gun port, something like that. You know, and then things will be fine. People don't expect a lot from Wargaming. We just expect a little bit of a way of us fighting back with standard ammunition from the front. That's what we're expecting. But even like that's the main issue right now. This is their policy. This is the way that they want to have this game made. They want us to be playing World of Tanks this very specific way that we are constantly firing gold. Look at my tanks. I constantly have about 40% ammunition on my vehicles that is premium. Look at that. 10 rounds in my 122 TM. In my T34-3, I have 11 rounds. In the 121, I have 13 rounds. Now, I don't use a lot of gold. I rarely have to use it on the 122 TM. I rarely have to use it on T34-3 unless I face some tier 9 tanks. But still, the idea counts. You know, they're trying to feed us as many premium shells as we can, reduce the standard pen. Right here with the Skoda, it's the same. 208 millimeters, obviously, it's more than enough most of the time. But 208 millimeters is not going to touch the Vipera at all. Not even the premium shells are going to be able to do anything against the upper plate of the vehicle. Unless the premium shells, well, 248 is not going to be enough still. But yeah, unless you have like something ridiculous like 330 millimeters of penetration. So yeah, I think obviously the Vipera is not the only tank that bothered me, but the Vipera is just the main focal point when I think about this patch 1.18, because it's the tank that I do meet the most often in tier 8. And the tier 8 standard Italian tank destroyer, if we look at the Simovente CC67, This tank actually has some weak spots. It has a cupola on top. You can actually go through the upper plate or the lower plate, because the lower plate is actually taller, it's larger, and it's not something that is completely made up. And even the upgraded turrets, let me put this one, put the different modules on just so we know what it looks like once fully upgraded. Even right here, I think the turret armor can be, I'm not sure if you can still do something against the tank if it's, yeah. I think you get my point. I'm kind of fed up with this, and I really thought about quitting World of Tanks for a second there. 2 days, I was really upset, and now I'm gonna be back. I'm gonna be making more videos again. But I just wanted to vent real quick, and I wanted to kind of see if I'm maybe overreacting. Am I overreacting? Is this like just showing that I completely lost like my connection to reality when it comes to World of Tanks, because this has always been the way that this game has been handled? Or is this really like one of the times they completely overstep the boundaries and I react appropriately for this kind of patch? Either way, I'll let you guys decide that. I'll be heading offline. I'm going to be playing some World of Tanks, play a little bit of tier 6 probably. I have the tier 5 TD right now, and hopefully I can make some reviews on the Italian TDs, and hopefully they are not too toxic.